Hi everyone. So in this video, we will discuss predicted questions of paper 4 for the upcoming test. So I will be uploading another video or two as well, as I haven't explained some other expected questions in this video because of the time limit. And these are the topics of the predicted questions that we will discuss in this video. Also, please make sure to watch the previous prediction video I made for paper 2, because some of the questions related to compound interest, recurring decimal, and Pythagoras' theorem involving 3D shapes, algebra, they are highly expected. And I have explained that in the previous video, which is prediction paper 2 video. So please make sure to watch that as well. So then let's get started. This is the first question that I'm going to discuss, and I'm not going in the order as how the paper as how the questions will be in the paper though. So this is like I have randomly picked those important, highly expected questions, and I will also take you through some of the concepts very quickly and the formulas too, so that it's going to be much more easier and it will be effective for you as well. So then the first one is a trigonometry question, which is related to sine cosine rule. So in this, there are certain formulas that you need to remember. So these are those formulas that you need to remember. So the first one is the sine rule. So when it comes to the sine rule, we need to make sure that the sides are written at the top and their sine angles are at the bottom, or we can even flip this and write, that's absolutely fine. The way how the angles and the sides are labeled is now according to the diagram, the vertices will be given to you. Now the sides will be labeled based on the vertices. So right opposite to this angle, I have this side, so I need to label it with this, with its lowercase letter, so small c. So opposite to this, I will label it as A. Opposite to this side, I'm going to label it as B. So first label the sides and then apply it into the sine rule or the cosine rule. So it's the same thing for both sine rule and cosine rule. So you will have to change the formula according to the vertices. And then when it comes to the cosine rule, it's very important that this side and this angle, they are opposite to each other. So if the question is asking us to find what angle A is, then I need to start with A. If I'm asked to find what the angle B is, then in that case, this should start with B. The other two sides should be written here. And the multiplication of these two sides that you wrote here with a 2 should be written with this, with its cos of the angle opposite to this side. Then the next one is when it comes to the area of a triangle. To calculate the area of a triangle, we have two formulas. One is half times base times height. This is used when the perpendicular height is given to us. So this is that perpendicular height. So when the perpendicular height is given to us, we will be using half times base times height. And this formula is used to calculate the area of a triangle as well. This is when the perpendicular height is not given. Instead, an angle like this and the sides connected to that angle are given here. So we call this angle as the included angle. So in that case, we need to do half times AB sine C. So you multiply these two sides with a half and then multiply it with the sine of the angle that is in between those two sides. Then we also need to have an idea about the trigonometry, which is related to SOHCAHTOA and Pythagoras' theorem. So when it comes to SOHCAHTOA or Pythagoras' theorem, they both are applied only to right-angled triangles, but sine cosine rule and even this half AB sine C, so it doesn't have to be a right-angled triangle. So when it comes to SOHCAHTOA, first label the angle will be given, or if you are to find the angle, so you need to mark the angle. So right opposite to the angle, the side is considered as the opposite side. Then the right opposite to the 90-degree angle, you have the hypotenuse, and this will be the adjacent side that is connected to the angle. So you will be labeling the sides. But when we try to apply SOHCAHTOA, we don't have to label all the sides. Label the side that is given to you and the side that you are supposed to find. You don't have to label the other side. So when you do it that way, then you can easily identify which trigonometric ratio to use, whether it's sine, cos, or tan. And in SOHCAHTOA, you need to keep in mind that, or even in this entire trigonometry concept that we have here, whether it's sine cosine rule or whether it's SOHCAHTOA, when calculating the value of an angle, that is when we use inverse. When it comes to Pythagoras' theorem, again, it's applied to right-angled triangle. The hypotenuse is labeled with C and the other two sides are labeled with A and B. So the Pythagoras' theorem formula is A squared plus B squared is equal to C squared. But in short, if we are to calculate the hypotenuse, then we square the two shorter legs together, shorter legs, add them together and square root it. And if we are trying to find one of the shorter leg, then we square it, subtract, and then we need to do the square root of it. So in this case, when we do the subtraction is used when calculating the shorter side. Addition is used when calculating the hypotenuse. And in subtraction, when calculating the shorter leg, always the square of the hypotenuse has to be written first. So this is this idea, all these formulas and this idea should be enough for us to work on questions related to trigonometry. So then let's get started. In this question, we need to calculate angle ACD. So ACD is this angle. This is what we are supposed to calculate. So we already discussed about the formulas related to trigonometry, further trigonometry, Pythagoras' theorem and things like that. So here we need to calculate this angle. Now this is the triangle that I need to consider, which is ACD. So I know all three sides. I need to calculate the angle. So then I need to make sure to use the cosine rule to calculate the angle. So first I'm going to label the sides based on the vertices. So opposite to this angle is this side, which is 9 kilometers. I'm going to label with its lowercase letter, which is C. This side should be labeled as D. This side should be labeled as A because it's opposite to this angle here. I need to apply the cosine rule. So in the cosine rule, I have A squared is equal to B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cos A. But in this case, I need to find this angle C. That means in my formula, I need to start with C because I'm supposed to find this angle C. So I'm going to write the formula as C squared is equal to the other two sides, which are A and D. So A squared plus D squared. And then I have minus 2 times the product of these two, which is 2 times AD, then cos C. So as you can see here, as I need to find what this angle C is, I need to have C here. To do that, I need to start with the opposite side for that angle, which is the simple C or the lowercase c. Now, before I do the substitution here, as I'm trying to find the value of this angle C, I'm going to make this C the subject. So to do that, I'm going to take this minus 2AD to this side of the equation and this C squared to this side of the equation. So this will be 2AD cos C because the negative 2AD cos C, when it goes to the other side, it becomes positive. This is equal to A squared plus D squared. And this C squared, I'm going to take it to the other side, minus C squared. I'm going to make C the subject. So first I'm going to make cos C the subject by taking this 2AD to the other side. So it will get divided. So I have A squared plus D squared minus C squared over 2AD. This is equal to cos C. The C is the angle. So when calculating the angle, we need to make sure to use inverse, which means I can do the inverse of cos for this entire fraction that I have in the other side. That will give us what C is. So I need to do inverse cos of this entire thing. So this will be equal to my angle, which is C. Now I'm going to substitute the values here, that is of A, D, and C. I'm going to substitute it. So A is equal to 12. So let me write it here. So it's going to be 12 squared plus D is equal to 14 squared minus C is equal to 9 squared over, I have 2 times A, that is 12 times D, that is equal to 14. I need to put this and I need to do the inverse for this. That will give me what C is equal to. So the inverse of this, inverse cos of this should be done for me to calculate what C is. So I'm going to put this in the calculator and see what we get as the value. So then in the calculator, I'm going to directly apply this. So inverse cos with the fraction I have 12 squared plus 14 squared minus 9 squared over 2 times 12 times 14 and then close the bracket. So this is equal to 39.57 degrees. So then the value of C is equal to 39.57 degrees. That is the value of this angle ACD, 39.57 degrees. Then if you check the next question, show that BC is equal to 7.05 kilometers correct to 2 decimal places. So BC is this side that we have here. So we need to show that this is equal to 7.05 kilometers. So we need to check what this side is, how much this side is. We need to prove that that is equal to 7.05 kilometers. So in this case, if we check this triangle which is ABC, I know this angle here. The side opposite to this angle is known to us. So that is B, that is 14 kilometers. And this vertex is, this angle is B. So I'm going to label this 14 kilometers with its lowercase letter, which is B. And then the next one that I have is I need to find how much this side is. To find this side, I need to use this angle that I have here because this side is opposite to this angle, which is 25. So I'm going to label this as A. So I need to find what this A is. So in this case, I can apply this into the sine rule. I can also substitute the value of the angle for C as well. But we are not trying to find the opposite side of C here, which is AB. We are not trying to find that. Therefore, we are not going to use it. So in the cosine rule, so if I write the sine rule, so it's going to be A over sine A is equal to B over sine B. This is equal to C over sine C. Let's substitute the entire thing first. So A, I need to find that over sine A will be sine of this angle, which is 25. This is equal to B, I know that's 14, over sine B is sine of that angle, which is 123, which is equal to C. C I do not know, and the angle that is there is known to us as 32. But in this case, we are not trying to find what C is. That's the reason why there's no need for us to write this. So we are going to use a fraction where both the numerator and the denominator both are known, and we are going to use the other fraction in which the value that we are supposed to find is there. In that, either the numerator or the denominator should be known to us. So in this case, we know the denominator as sine 25. So we are going to use these two fractions together for us to find the value of A, which is the side length BC. So then I can write this as, I can write it here as BC. So instead of writing this, so let me put this here. Okay, I'm going to put that here. So then this A that we have here is BC. So this is what we have. So if we are to find what BC is, I need to cross multiply this and make B the subject. This is just like if we have two fractions on either side of an equal sign, we need to cross multiply and find the value of the variable. So this is how we should do it. So then when we cross multiply, we get BC times sine 123, which is equal to 14 times sine 25. If I'm to find what BC is, I need to bring this sine 125 to 23 to the other side, so it gets divided. And make sure that you do not substitute the value of the sine, cos, or tan angle at the beginning itself before rearranging it. Because sine, cos, tan, they are very sensitive. So always make sure to rearrange it completely and then put that in the calculator. So this is how it will be. So I'm going to put this in the calculator and see what we get as the value. So we have 14 times sine 25. And then at the bottom, we have sine 123. So then when I do this, I get the value as 7.05. And we're supposed to write it correct to 2 decimal places. So I'm going to write it as 7.0. Okay, hold on. So I'm going to write it as 7.05 like we got. So this is what we get. So it's the same answer as the one that is given here in the question. And this topic that we are doing is a very, very, very highly expected topic, because each and every year you do have a question related to this. So please make sure you go through this carefully. So then let's move on to question C that is given here. We need to calculate the shortest distance from B to AC. So in trigonometry, like shapes related to geometry, if they mention this term shortest distance, it means that they're referring to the perpendicular height. So this is the meaning of this shortest distance. So in the question, they're asking the shortest distance from B to AC. So this is where B is, this is where AC is, which means they're asking us to calculate the perpendicular height of this line here. That's the meaning. Now I have drawn this diagram at the bottom here. In this, I need to find what this perpendicular height is. So this is the height that I'm supposed to find. In this diagram, I haven't mentioned all the other sides and the angles because in this case, I can easily calculate the height using this side and this angle here, that is using SOHCAHTOA. So for this triangle, we have a right angle triangle here. This height is the opposite side, and this 7.05 is the hypotenuse. So I need to calculate the opposite side, and the side that is given to us is the hypotenuse. I'm not going to write the adjacent side because sometimes the moment you write that, it can confuse you as to which trigonometric ratio to use. So always label the side that you are supposed to find and the side that is already given to us. So in this case, if I consider SOHCAHTOA, so if I write SOHCAHTOA here, it's the opposite and the adjacent, so the opposite and the hypotenuse, so it's going to be sine. So then I'm going to substitute this into sine. So it will be sine 32 because the angle is given. That is equal to the opposite side, which is h, over the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is known to us as 7.05, which means if I'm to calculate the value of h, I need to bring this 7.05 to the other side. So it gets multiplied with sine 32, which means height is equal to 7.05 times sine 32. Let's quickly put this in the calculator and see what we get as the answer. So we have 7.05 times sine 32. So this is equal to 3.735. So I can write it correct to two decimal places as 3.74. So this is equal to 3.74 kilometers. The next question is to calculate the length of the straight line BD. So BD is the line connecting these 2 points here. So that is this vertex B and this vertex D. So we now need to calculate what BD is. So we know this side here, which is CD, that is going to be 12 kilometers. We know this side because we found how much this A is. That is this side BC, we already know that is 7.05 kilometers. So we found this as 7.05 kilometers. Then we also know how much this angle is, because this angle ACD we calculated as 39.57 degrees. So I know this complete angle then, that is by adding 39.57 with this 32, I know this complete angle. Then I need to calculate what this BD is. So if I select this triangle, I know this side, I know this side, I know this angle. So this angle, the side opposite to this angle is what I need to find, which means two sides and an angle is given, and I need to find the third side. Therefore, I need to make use of the cosine rule again. So then in this triangle, so I will mark the information again in this one, the smaller diagram that I have drawn. So this angle we already figured out previously, that is equal to, so from the previous one, we know that is equal to 39.57. So this is 39.57, which means this total angle, this complete angle that we have here is the sum of 39.57 and 32 degrees together. So that is equal to 71.57. So I will mark as 71.57 degrees here. So for this triangle that I have here, if I draw this using a different color again, this is that triangle I'm going to use to apply the cosine rule. So for this, I'm going to label the sides. This is angle D, opposite to that angle. This side will be D. This is angle C opposite to this side, that is C. And this is angle B opposite to this side. This is going to be B. So the sides are C, D, and B. So I can label it directly like this, or we can directly use the vertices given here. So I need to find what this BD is. So this BD will be equal to, I need to square the other two sides given. So that is going to be 7.05 and 12. So I can write it as 12 squared plus 7.05 squared minus 2 times the product of these two sides, which is 12 and 7.05. And then I need to cos off the angle opposite to this side, which is known to us, that is going to be this 71.57. That is equal to BD square. So if I'm to find what BD is, I need to make sure to square root this answer that I get here. So I'm going to put this in the calculator directly and see what we get as the value for BD. So then the square root, so I have 12 squared plus 7.05 squared minus 2 times 12 times 7.05 times cos of the angle 71.57. So when we do that, we end up getting 11.84 kilometers as the value for BD. So BD is equal to 11.84 kilometers. So this is what we are supposed to find. Let's move on to the next part of the question. C is due east of A. So I have put that diagram here. So this is C, that is due east of A. So this is the east for A. Find the bearing of D from C. So this is where C is. We need to find the bearing of D from C. So now in this case, to find the bearing of D from C, from whatever the location that is mentioned, that is where the angle has to be measured. So first, the two locations mentioned are D and C. So that is these two locations. First, identify the two locations and connect those two locations with a line like this. From C means at C, I need to draw the north, and then I need to measure the angle in the clockwise direction until I meet the line connecting these two locations that is mentioned in the question. So this is the angle that I'm supposed to find. Now in the question, it clearly states that C is due east of A, which means this angle that I have here will be the west for this this side that we have here, which is A, will be the west for this location C here. That means this complete angle that we have here, that I have shaded here, will be equal to 270 degrees, because that is from north to west. The angle will be 270 degrees. Now, from the first part of the question, we already figured out how much this angle is. So this angle, we ended up getting 39.57 from the first part of the question. So simply, I need to add this 270 degrees with this 39.57 to calculate the bearing. So 270 plus 39.57 degrees together is equal to 309.57 degrees. So this is what we need to write as the bearing. And keep in mind that when writing bearing, it's very important that we have 3 digits in our answer. That means the 3 digits they're referring to will be the digits before the decimal place. If we do not have 3 digits, it's very important that we add a 0. So for example, if we get something like 28 degrees, then in that case, we need to add a 0 in front of that 28. So this is how we should be doing it. Also, please make sure to check my previous video, which is about prediction for paper 2, because there I have explained another bearing question. Let's move on to the next one that we have. So this is another type of question that we can expect in this trigonometry topic. So I haven't included the entire question, so I have mentioned the code here of the paper. So in that I have picked the last part of it. The reason I picked here is, now in this case, they're asking for 2 possible values for the angle PQR. So here, a triangle is given ABC. The area of this triangle and the area of the triangle PQR is mentioned as same, which means in this case, first we will calculate the area of this triangle. Then that will be the same as the area of this triangle here. And we are supposed to find the angle QR, PQR. So in that case, to find the angle Q here, these 2 sides are mentioned. So we can find what this Q is, but they are asking for 2 possible values for angle Q. That is what we need to do here. So first we need to calculate the area of the triangle. So here, two sides and an angle is given. So in the area of the triangle, we have half times base times height and half AB sine C formulas to calculate the area of the triangle. So we will be using half AB sine C here. So here this A and B are the sides connected to this angle. So that is, this angle is the included angle. So we are going to do something like half times 82 times 55 times sine 76. So this way we can calculate the value of this triangle here. So I'm going to put this in the diagram. So it's going to be half times 82 times 55 times sine 76. So when we do that, we get 2188.016. So I can write it as 2188.02. 88.02 square meters as the area of this triangle. This is the same area for the other two triangles, which means, again, to calculate the value of this angle here, these two sides connected to that angle is known, which means, again, I will have to use this formula half AB sine C for me to calculate the value of the angle. I use this area, which is 2188.02, which is equal to half times A and B are these two sides connected to the angle, which is this 90 and 60, like it's mentioned in the question. I have drawn it here. And then I need to find what this angle is. So that's going to be sine of angle. I will mark it as Q. So then I need to rearrange this to find what Q is. So then to do that, I have 2188.02. I'm going to bring this half to the other side. When I bring the half to the other side, this is a fraction. A fraction when brought to the other side, it will flip and multiply. So I can flip this fraction that becomes 2 over 1, which is the same as a 2, and multiply it with whatever I have in the other side. This 90 and 60, they are multiplying. If I take those two to the other side, they will get divided as well. So that is 90 times 60. And then that is equal to sine of angle Q. I need to find what this Q is. Q is the angle. I need to do the inverse of whatever the value that I have here to find what Q is. So now I'm going to put this in the calculator and see what we get as the value. So I have inverse sine. I'm going to put it in the fraction as 2188.02 times 2. And then I have 90 times 60. And I'm going to close the brackets here. So that is equal to 54.13. That is correct to 2 decimal places. So 54.13 is one of the angle for this, one of the value for this angle, which is PQR. But in the question, we are requested to find two possible values for PQR. I have done two different diagrams here for this triangle PQR, which means one of this angle can be, this angle Q can be in the form of an acute angle, as well as the other angle could be an obtuse angle. So to find the other angle, we need to make sure that from 180 degrees, we subtract this 54.13 that we got to calculate the value of the other angle. So from 180, I'm going to deduct 54.13. So this gives us 125.87 degrees. This will be the other angle, which is that obtuse angle. So we now have calculated the acute angle as well as the obtuse angle. Let's move on to the next one that we have. This is the next question that we will be working on, which is related to sequences. If you check my prediction video that I made for paper 2, in that also I have a sequence question where I put, which includes fractions as well. I have also explained about the formulas that you need to remember when it comes to a quadratic sequence, and how a linear sequence and arithmetic sequence is solved as well. So you can have a look at that as well. So there you will understand how to solve a fractional sequence as well as a quadratic sequence. So there is a reason why I picked this question again, because this question is highly expected again. And I sort of feel that you would get it in the form of a table like this, most probably. And let's see what we end up getting, but I'm going to quickly take you through this question. So the sequence given here is, the first sequence given here is given to us as 9, 5, 1, and -3. And we are supposed to find the fifth term as well as the nth term. So the nth formula, so I'm going to first find the nth formula. To calculate that, I need to find the difference between the terms. So 9 to 5, I need to deduct a 4. This one also should be, we need to deduct a 4. Here also, I need to deduct a 4. That means this forms the first part of the nth term, which is negative 4n. Now to find the next part that gets connected to this nth term, now this is, now to find the next part that gets connected to this nth term, from this minus 4, I need to see what I should add or subtract to get to this 9, which means in this case, I need to add a 13. This forms the next part of the nth term. So the nth term for this sequence is minus 4n plus 13. Then now the next one is, for me to find the fifth term, what I've got to do is, this n should be replaced with the value 5. So it's going to be negative 4 times 5 plus 13. So when we do this, we end up getting negative 7 as the answer, which means the fifth term for this sequence is equal to negative 7. Then the second sequence that we have here goes as 4, 9, 16, 25. This is actually the sequence for a square number, because two same numbers multiply together to give you these numbers that we have here. But for a square number, two same numbers are multiplying, so we might think that it will be n squared, but then this is n squared is the nth term for a square number. But here, when we replace n with a 1, we get 1 squared that is equal to a 1, but our first term is not a 1, but our first term is a 4. So to get to that, we should add a 1 to this n and then square it. So only then 1, when we substitute 1 for n, it becomes 1 plus 1, which is equal to a 2. And when we square that 2, that gives us this 4. So this gives us, this is the nth term for this sequence that is given to us. So that is going to be n plus 1 with the square. Now, if I'm to find the fifth term, so I need to replace this value of n with a 5. So that's going to be 5 plus 1 with the square, that is equal to 6 squared, which is 36. So the fifth term is going to be equal to 36. The next sequence given to us is given as 1, 8, 27, 64. Now, this is actually a cubic sequence. So these are cube numbers. So then cube numbers means square numbers, it was n to the power 2. Cube numbers means it's going to be n to the power 3. So when I substitute 1 for n, that becomes 1 cube, which is equal to a 1. That gives us the first term. 2 cube gives us 8, that gives us the second term that we have here, which means here the nth term of this sequence will be n cubed. And if I'm to find what the fifth term is, then I need to substitute 5 for n, that becomes 5 cube, which is equal to 125. That is 5 times 5 times 5. Then the last sequence given to us is given as 8, 16, 32, 64. This is the next sequence given to us. So when we consider this sequence that is given here, this is a geometric sequence, because each time it has to be multiplied by a 2 to form the next term that we have here. So in this case, as it being multiplied with a 2, so it's going to be something like 2 to the power n. But when I substitute 1 for this n, this becomes 2 to the power 1, that is equal to a 2, but I need to get an 8 here. So to get an 8, this n the overall index should be equal to a 3. So I need to add a 2 to this n, so that becomes 2 to the power n plus 2, which means when n is 1, 1 plus 2 becomes a 3. So 2 to the power 3 is equal to this first term, that is this 8. So if it's the second term, it will be 2 to the power 2 plus 2. So 2 plus 2 is equal to a 4. 2 to the power 4 is equal to the 16. So here the nth term is 2 to the power n plus 2. And if I'm to find the fifth term, this n should be replaced with 5. So it's going to be 2 to the power 5 plus 2. So 5 plus 2 is equal to 7. So 2 to the power 7 is equal to 128. This will be our fifth term. There was this past paper, one of the past paper. In that, there was a question where, similar to this, they had given a table where you had to find the nth term of 4 sequences. But the fifth sequence, the way how they had calculated the nth term was by subtracting one sequence from the previous sequence. So it was like from the third sequence was deducted from the second sequence. In that case, if you get a question like that, then the nth term you will find you would have already found the second terms and the third terms nth term as well as these terms here. Then to find the nth term of that last sequence, you would write the same thing, n plus 1 with the square minus n cube. So the nth term of those two will be written with the subtraction, just like it's being subtracted. And to find the fifth term, or the term that you're supposed to find here, in that case, using by finding the difference between the two numbers from 36, I can deduct this 125 to find it. That is only if the sequence follows that pattern. So you might get you may get something like that as well, even if you get you know how to do it now. Let's move on to the next question then. Here's a question that is related to bounds. So even in paper 2 predictions, I have explained about a question related to bounds. You can go through that as well. The reason why I picked this one is to quickly brush up the concept related to this. Now, in this question, there are 500 hens to the nearest 10. It's around correct to the nearest 10. In 1 year, the mean number of eggs, mean is the average. The average number of eggs laid per hen was 320 eggs. And this is given to the nearest 10, nearest 20. Calculate the upper bound for the total number of eggs all the hens lay in that year. So then to calculate the upper bound for the total number of eggs. Now, in this case, when it comes to calculating the upper bound or lower bound, now here, to calculate the upper bound for the total number of eggs, I need to multiply the number of hens with the number of eggs laid by each hen. So I'll write it as eggs laid by each hen. So this is what I should do to calculate the total number of eggs. But I need to calculate the upper bound for the total number of eggs. So in a multiplication question, if we are to calculate the upper bound, both these should be the upper bounds. So it should be the upper bound for the number of hens as well as the upper bound for the number of eggs laid. So now, if it was a division, subtraction, or addition calculation, let's see how the combination should be to calculate the upper bound or the lower bound. So here I have mentioned how the combination should be. So if it's an addition, to calculate the maximum value, that is the upper bound. So the upper bound of the two values given to you should be added. Then the lower bound means the minimum value, it should be the lower bounds that you need to add. So for subtraction, multiplication, and division also, I have mentioned it here. So this is how the combination should be. So for this question, we have the number of hens is 500. We need to calculate the upper bound. So this 500, it has been rounded to the nearest 10. This number that is given to us, here it's given as nearest 10 and nearest 20, that has to be divided by a 2 to calculate what number should be added or subtracted to calculate the upper bound and the lower bound. So here, when I divide this 10 by a 2, we get a 5. This 20 by a 2, we get a 10. So to this 500, I need to add a 5 to calculate the upper bound, which is 505. And to find the lower bound, I need to deduct a 5. But I need the number to the upper bound for the number of hens. So that's going to be 505. I need to times this with the eggs laid by each hen, but the upper bound of it. So that's going to be 320. So to calculate the upper bound and the lower bound, now I have divided this 20 by a 2, I get a 10. So I need to add a 10 or deduct a 10 to calculate the upper bound and the lower bound, which means 320 plus 10 is 330. When I deduct a 10, it's going to be 310, but we do not need that because we need the upper bound. So just these two numbers will be enough. So we need to times these two numbers together and see what we get as the answer. That will be the upper bound for the total number of eggs. So then when we multiply these two, we get 166,650. That is 166,650 eggs. This is the amount of, this is the total number of eggs laid by, eggs the hens lay in that year. And this is the upper bound value. The next question is, another farm has 800 hens, correct to the nearest 20. That means this is also something to do with upper bound bounds. So we need to calculate the lower bound for the difference between the number of hens in both the farms. Then to find what number should be added or subtracted to calculate the upper bound or the lower bound, I need to divide this by 2. That becomes a 10. Now I need to find the difference between the number of hens on both the farms. Now we have 800 here. From the larger number, we need to deduct the smaller number for this. So we have 800. So this is a subtraction calculation. So in a subtraction calculation, to find the lower bound, the larger values lower bound and the smaller values upper bound should be calculated. This lower value in the sense, the larger value in the sense, I'm referring to this 800. So the lower bound of 800 should be considered. So to do that, from this 800, I need to deduct a 10, which is 790. And for the smaller value, I need to calculate the upper bound. So the smaller value is, the number of hens is 500. The upper value of that is 505. So I need to put that 505 and do the subtraction, because to calculate the lower bound for a subtraction calculation, it should be lower bound minus the upper bound. So from 790, I can deduct this 505. This gives us 285 as the answer. So this will be the lower bound for the difference between the number of hens on both the farms. If you check the prediction paper 2 video, in that the question that I have selected relating upper bound, lower bound is connected with speed. So you can go through that as well so that you will get a clear understanding about how to work this topic. Let's move on to the next predicted question that we have. This is the next question that we have, which is related to cumulative frequency. And then we also have a little bit on histograms. So we will go through this. But before this, before we work on this question, let's quickly go through the concept behind this. This is what you need to know here. So mode means the most frequent score. Median is the middle score. So when a set of scores are given like this, to find the median, you add the total number of scores with a 1. And then divide it by a 2, that will give you the position of the median. So if you have an odd number of scores, then it will give you an exact value for the median, exact location of the median. But when you have even number of scores, you will end up getting the, you need to find the average between the two scores that are in the middle. So that is, you need to add them together and divide it by 2. And mean means the average. So to calculate that, when the set of scores are given in the form of a list, you add all the scores and divide it by the number of scores. And if it's given in the form of a table, we do fx divided by f. So this x is the score. In some tables, it will be the score where the class intervals are not given. Directly the scores will be given. But in certain frequency tables given to you, x will be the mid value. The reason why it's going to be the mid value is that the class interval will be given. It will be given as a group. For example, 2 to 10. So it will be given like that. So we need to find the mid value by adding the two values and dividing it by 2. That value only should be multiplied with the frequency and divided by the total of the frequency. Then the next one that we have is to calculate the range. That's the difference between the maximum and the minimum value in those scores given to us. Then we also have to have an idea about box and whisker plots. So in that, when it comes to box and whisker plots, we need to know 5 numbers to draw a box and the whisker plot. The first one is the minimum value. Then we have the lower quartile, median, upper quartile, and then we have the maximum value. So each section here represents 25% of the scores. Then now when we consider a set of scores given to us, the median, as we already know, that is the score in the middle. So I have put 11 scores here. So the 6th score will be the median. Now, if I want to calculate the lower quartile and the upper quartile, lower quartile will be the median for the scores below this median that is given, which means we have 5 scores before this median. So the middle of that is going to be this one. So that will be the lower quartile. The upper quartile will be from the median to the highest scores, the value that is in the middle. So in that case, we have 5 scores after the median. So the score in the middle is going to be this one here. So that will be the upper quartile. If I'm to calculate the interquartile range, it will be the difference between the upper quartile and the lower quartile. So we need to deduct the lower quartile from the upper quartile to calculate the interquartile range. Range is the difference between the maximum and the minimum value, or the highest and the lowest score. To calculate the position of the median, when we have a cumulative frequency curve, in that case, we need to divide n by a 2. We do not add a 1 there. But if it's given as in the form of a list, To calculate the median, we need to add 1 and divide it by 2 to find the position of that of the median. Next thing that we need to remember when it comes to the frequency histograms is this formula, which is the frequency density formula that is found by using the frequency and the class width, where the frequency is divided by the class width. Now let's move on to the question that we have. There are 160 people in a village. The cumulative frequency diagram shows information about their ages. So the cumulative frequency curve is given to us. So the reason why I put this question is sometimes now you might be given the cumulative frequency table and you will be asked to draw the cumulative frequency curve, or else the cumulative frequency curve will be given and then you will be asked to do questions related to the cumulative frequency curve directly. And also you might be given a histogram and then you will have to do it, or you will have to draw a histogram as well. So it will be something related to those. Now, in this case, the cumulative frequency curve is given to us. We need to calculate the median age. So in the y-axis, the total is going to be 160. That's going to be the cumulative frequency. That's the total frequency. So like I mentioned in the mentioned previously, to calculate the median, the position of the median in a cumulative frequency curve, the position of the median in a cumulative frequency curve, the total should be divided by 2. So in this case, it's 160. The total of the frequency should be divided by 2. So that's going to be 160 divided by 2, that is 80, which means the 80th score should be calculated or should be identified. So half of 160 is 80. So this is where 80 is. I'm going to draw a line until I meet the graph. So this is where I end up. And then I'm going to find its value. So the value that I get is going to be here. So that is in the middle of 20 and 30. That's going to be 25. So that will be the median for this curve, that is a cumulative frequency curve that is given here. The next one is to calculate the lower quartile. So lower quartile is the median for the lower values. That means these are the values that we have before the median. So you need to find the mid value for that, the value in the middle of those scores. So that is 0 to 80. So in the middle, we have 40. So I need to draw a line at 40 until I meet the curve. And at that point, I need to find the value. So this value here is 17.5, which means the lower quartile will be 17.5. I'm not asked about the upper quartile, but if I ask the upper quartile here, so I need to do a line. Now we have 80 and 160. I will have to draw a line at 120 until I meet the graph. And at this point, I will find the value. So I'm gonna draw a line like this. And this is going to be the value for that. So in this case, it's in between. So here we have something like 34. So this is not asked, but I'm just doing this in addition to the questions that we have here. Then the next one is find the estimate for the number of people who are 50 or more years of age. So in this case, the age is given. So this is the x-axis which represents the age. So 50 or more means from 50 and everything above that. So to do that, to find the number of people, now instead of doing from the x-axis to the bottom, instead of drawing the arrows that way, we need to do it the other way around. So from here, I'm gonna draw a line up until I meet the graph, meet the curve that is given. So it's going to be like this. This is where I meet. At this point, I'm gonna check the value. So this is that number here. So this number that I have here is going to be 148 because each tiny box here represents 2 units. Then now everything above that means this region 50 and above means this is the region that they are referring to. But we need to find the number. So it's going to be this section that we have here, which is the difference between 160 and 148. So the difference between those two is going to be equal to 12. So that will be the value here. But if the question was, who are the number of people who are less than 50? So in that case, you would do the same thing. You would draw the line up like this. But in that case, it's going to be from 148 and below. So that's going to be the difference between 0 and 148, which is 148. Then the next question, before we move on to this 65th percentile, there's another question that I want to mention. So suppose if we are asked to find the interquartile range, in that case, it's the difference between the upper quartile and the lower quartile. So the upper quartile is this 34 and the lower quartile is 17.5. So we would find the difference between these two values to calculate the interquartile range. So in this case, the interquartile range will be 16.5. The next thing is to find the 65th percentile. The 65th percentile means that the score that is in the that is going to be the 65% of the total amount. So it's going to be, first you need to find what 65% of the total scores is. So that will give you the position of the score. So you need to find what is the score in that position. That is what we are supposed to do. Which means 65% of the total means here the total frequency is 160. So I need to do 65% of 160, which means 65 over 100 times 160. So when I do this, I end up getting 104, which means we need to find the score in the 104th position. So 104th position means in the y-axis, we need to see where 104 is. So this is 100, this is 102, and we have 104 here. So I'm gonna draw a line at 104 until I meet the graph like this. At this point, I will be finding the value of x. So this is the value of x, that is going to be 30, which means the value that is represented by this 104th score is going to be 30. That will be the 65th percentile. The next question that we have is to draw a box and a whisker plot. And in the box and a whisker plot, they have mentioned the youngest is a 1-year-old and the oldest is a 70-year-old. When we consider a box and a whisker plot, like I explained previously, there are 5 values that you need to know. The minimum value, maximum value, that is the smallest and the largest. And in the middle, we need to know the lower quartile, lower quartile, median, and the upper quartile. So using those, we need to find the values. We need to draw the box and the whisker plot. So the lowest is 1. So I'm gonna mark it here 3, and this is going to be where 1 is. Then the highest is going to be 70, that is the oldest. So this is 70. So this is where I'm gonna mark the highest. Then I need 3 more to form the box. So that is the lower quartile, upper quartile, and we also need the median. So then in that case, we already know the lower quartile, which is 17.5 that we found. So that is 10. In the middle, we have 15. So 17.5 will be here. So I'm going to draw a line like this in the middle. So because this represents 17.5. And then we know the median. So median is equal to 25. So I need to draw a line at 25 as well. So this is in the middle. So I'm going to draw a line at 25. And then I need to know the upper quartile. So the upper quartile is going to be the one that we found here already, even though we were not asked to calculate here. So you need to find the score that is in the middle of 80 and 160, which is 120. You draw a line to the curve. At that point, you need to check its x value, which is this 34. That will be the upper quartile. So I'm going to draw a line at 34. This is where 34 is. So I'm going to draw a line. And this will form the box in the box and the whisker plot. Now I need to connect the whiskers to this box. So this is how the box and the whisker plot would look like. The next question is, write down an estimate of the percentage of people in the village that are younger than the median age. So the median is here. Younger than the median age means this is the section that they are referring to. Each section here represents 25%. That means this section represents 50%. The next one that we have is a frequency table. So we need to draw the frequency histogram. I have done a similar question in the prediction paper 2 video as well. Please have a look at that. So here I picked this for a reason, because I wanted to explain how to calculate the mean when a histogram is given. So in this case, first to draw a histogram, we need to know the frequency density. The formula for the frequency density is the frequency divided by the class width. So in this case, the frequency is given. We need to find the class width. Then we can calculate the frequency density. To calculate the class width here, The class width is going to be the difference of the highest and the lower value here for each of the intervals. So 0 to 20, that's going to be 20, 20 to 30, that's a 10, 30 to 50, that is a 20, 50 to 80, that's a 30. And then now the frequency density is found by dividing the frequency by the class width. So this 52 should be divided by 20, that is equal to 2.6. 37 divided by 10, that's 3.7. 24 divided by 20, that is going to be equal to 1.2. And then 60 divided by 30, that is equal to a 2. So this way we can find the frequency density. Now that we know the frequency density, we can now draw the frequency histogram given to us. Now, in the prediction video, if you check, in the previous prediction video, if you check, there, the frequency density is calculated and there was a question relating the height of the bars. Now here, if you check the first one, 0 to 20, that the diagram is already given to us. 0 to 20 has a height of 2.6. So here, the height is the same as the frequency density. But in that question, the frequency density and the height was different. So I had to calculate the height of the others, I had to multiply accordingly. But here it's the same. Then I'm going to quickly draw it. So I'm going to mark these values. So I have 20 to 30. So that is going to be from here to here. It has a height of 3.7. So I have marked the points accordingly and I have drawn the histogram. This is how it would look like. Then the next question that I wanted to explain related to this is, now let's say that now we can calculate the mean here when a frequency table is given here. So in that case, to calculate the mean, we would do fx divided by f. So the frequency should be multiplied with x. So here, x will be the mid value of each of these intervals. So 0 to 20, the mid value is 10. So I need to multiply 10 and 52 together to find what fx for that part is. Likewise, we will find for each one of this, add them together, and we will divide it by the total of the frequency. That is how the mean should be calculated when a table like this is given. But let's say that this histogram is the only thing that is given to us, and now we are supposed to calculate the mean. If we are supposed to calculate the mean in this case, again, we know that the formula to calculate the mean is fx divided by f. So we need to know the frequency. To find the frequency when a table like this is given to us, I'm going to use the frequency density is equal to frequency over the class width formula. To find the frequency, I need to bring the class width to the other side, which means the frequency density and the class width should be multiplied together to calculate the frequency. So in that case, we have the frequency density in the y-axis, class width in the x-axis. So I need to multiply it. So it's like I need to calculate the area of each of these bars to calculate the frequency. So that means here we have 2.6 and then 20. So I need to multiply 2.6 and 20 together, which gives us 52. Then the next one is 20 to 30. Here the distance that I have is 10. I need to multiply 10. And this height that I have here, which is 3.7. 3.7 times 10 is going to be 37. Next, we have 1.2 here. This side we have 20. The difference between, we need to multiply those two. So that becomes 24. This side is going to be 2. And this side is 30. When I multiply 2 and 30, that becomes 60. Which means, now if I'm to calculate the mean here, the total of the frequency that I have here will be the addition of these four numbers that is given here, which is 52, 37. So 52, 37, 24, and then 60 together. And fx that is in the numerator will be the frequency that we have found here should be multiplied with its mid value. So that is going to be 52 times the mid value of 0 to 20 is going to be 10. So we would do 52 times 10. Then we have 37 times the mid value, that is going to be 25. 37 times 25. Then we have 24 times 40. Then the next one that we have is the mid value in between 50 and 80. So in between 50 and 80 that we have here is going to be 65. I need to multiply 60 with 65, add them together, and then divide it by this total of the frequency that will give us the mean. So in this case, when we do this, we end up getting 36.44 as the mean. So I just wanted to explain this to you all as well. That's because there can be questions related to this where a frequency histogram is given and you're asked to calculate the mean. Even without this chart, we can still do it. It's just that we need to rearrange this frequency density formula and then do the question. Let's move on to the next one that we have then. In this question, we are supposed to draw this quadratic graph that is given to us. So there are two sections here. So first we need to find the missing numbers. So then we have y is equal to x squared minus 3 over 2x. To complete these numbers, what we got to do is, for the first one, this value of the value of x should be replaced with this negative 3. So it will be negative 3 squared minus 3 over 2 times negative 3. So I'm going to put this in the calculator. And when I do that, I get 9.5 as the value. So that way, you would put the value for this negative 2, you would replace the value of x with this negative 2 and find what you get, as well as this, replace this x with 3 and find the value. So that way, we will end up getting 4.8 here. And then we get 8.5 here. But we need to make sure we write our answer correct to one decimal place. So that's why this becomes 4.8, 8.5, and then we have 9.5 here. Now, using the values that we have here, we are going to plot the points in the grid given, and then we can draw the graph. The first one is negative 3 and 9.5. So we have negative 3 here. This is where 9 is. This is where 10 is. In between, we have 9.5. So this is where that point will be. Likewise, I'm going to mark all the other points. So I have marked all the points here. So I'm going to connect them to form the curves. So I have now connected the points that I marked to form the curve, but make sure that you do not have feathering lines like I have drawn here, and make sure that the curve is a smooth curve. Then the next part of the question is, by drawing a suitable straight line on the grid, solve the equation x squared minus 3 over 2x is equal to 24 over 5 minus 2x. This is the most important part because every year you do get a question similar to this. So we can highly expect a question similar to this. Now, first what you got to do is make the equation equal to a 0. That is, I'm going to take this 24 over 5 and minus 2x to the other side. So when I do that, it becomes x squared minus 3 over 2x. Then I have minus 24 over 5. The minus 2x when I take to the other side, it becomes plus 2x. This is equal to a 0 when I take it to the other side. So I'll put that equals 0 here. So this is how it would look like. And then to find the equation of the line that we are supposed to draw, what we got to do is we need to write the equation of the graph on top of that. So that is y is equal to x squared minus 3 over 2x. So we have y is equal to x squared minus 3 over 2x. We write the equation of the graph that is given to us. Then the equation that is given here should be written just below that, but make sure the equation is equal to a 0. Write it this way. To find the equation of the straight line, what we got to do is, from the equation of the graph, we need to deduct the equation that is given here. So when we do the subtraction, y minus 0 is equal to y. X squared minus x squared becomes a 0, so we can cross that out. Minus 3 over 2x minus 3 over 2x becomes a 0, so we can cancel that out as well. Then there's nothing here. Minus 24 over 5 is going to be plus 24 over 5. Then we have minus 2x becomes minus 2x like this. So then this is going to be the equation of the straight line. So I can write the equation of the straight line here as y is equal to, I will write the term with the variable first. So that's going to be minus 2x and then the y-intercept, which is this 24 over 5 after that. So this is how the equation of the straight line will be. Now here we could have easily figured that it's going to be this 25 or 24 over 5 minus 2x because this is that y. So I can write it as y is equal to 24 over 5 minus 2x directly. But the reason why I wanted to explain it this way is because now this method is important to know because this will not be the same way you will end up getting always. That's the reason why I wanted to explain it this way by making the equation equal to a 0 and then you subtract it from the equation of the graph. That will give you the equation of the straight line that we are supposed to draw. Now I need to draw this. Now I can find what 24 over 5 is equal to. So 24 over 5 is equal to 4.8. So that is y is equal to minus 2x plus 5, plus 4.8, because 24 over 5 is equal to 4.8. This 4.8 is the y-intercept. So we mark the y-intercept first. So this is 4, this is 5, 4.8 is here. So I have marked the y-intercept. And now the gradient is negative 2, which means this negative 2 has no denominator, means there is an invisible 1. So this is the same as rise over run, which means the rise is negative 2, the run is 1. So this negative 2 explains that you're going to go 2 units down. And this one explains that you need to go 1 unit across. So from the y-intercept, we need to go 2 units down. So this is where it's going to be. And it's going to go 1 unit across. 1 unit across is going to be this way, because this is going to be 1 unit. This is going to be 2 units, because this is from 0 to 1. We repeat this process. So 2 units down, it's going to go 2 units down and 1 unit across. So that's going to be here. Then again, 2 units down and 1 unit across. So it's going to be here. Likewise, I can even like continue doing the same thing in this side as well. 2 units up. Okay, hold on. There's a small mistake. So 2 units down from 4.8 will be here. And then it's going to be here. It's going to be 2.8. Sorry about that. It's going to be 2.8. And then it will be here. Then I need to do that again. 1, 2. So that's going to be at 0.8. And then this 2. I need to repeat this again. It's going to be at minus 0.2. And then again, I need to go down by another unit. So it'll be here. And then across. So it's going to be here. So I need to mark the points like that. And then I'm going to draw the straight line. So I have marked few points in this side as well. 2 units up, 1 unit across. Likewise, I have marked few points. And now I'm going to connect these points with a straight line. And this is how that straight line would look like. Now, once when we draw this, now to solve this, we need to find what x, the values of x are. This line intersects the graph at 2 points. One is this point. And then this is the other point that I have here. I'm going to find the values for this. So this is going to be minus 0.3. And this is 1.6. So then the two values are minus 0.3 and 1.6. So these two are the values of x that we have. Then the next one that we have is the solution to the equation x squared minus 3 over 2x is equal to 24 over 5 minus 2x. So we need to write this equation in this format and find what a, b, and c is equal to. So then, now in the previous step, we brought all these terms that we have here to the other side. So we are going to do the same thing because we need to make the equation equal to a 0. So that becomes x squared minus 3 over 2x minus 24 over 5 plus 2x. This is equal to this 0. Now I need to get rid of the denominator here because I need to first make the denominators of these terms the same, because only then I can add or subtract. And then I need to get rid of the denominator. So here the denominator is 1. Here the denominator is 1. I need to multiply this by, now the common denominator for this 2x and 5 will be 10x. Multiply it by 10x. Multiply by 10x. Multiply this by 5, this by 5. Only then I can make this a 10x. Multiply this by 2x, multiply this by 2x, that becomes 10x here. So to make the 1 into a 10x, I multiply by 10x and then 10x. So 10x times x squared becomes 10x cube, minus 3 times 5 becomes 15, minus 24 times 2 becomes 48x, plus 2x times 10x becomes 20x squared. This is over, the entire thing over. 10x is equal to a 0. I'm going to bring this 10x to the other side. That gets multiplied with this 0. So that becomes 10x to the power 3 minus 15 minus 48x plus 20x squared is equal to 0 times 10x becomes a 0 anyways. I'm going to rearrange this in this format. So it's going to be 10x cubed plus 20x squared minus 48x minus 15. This is equal to this 0. And I'm going to write the equation just below this. So ax cubed plus bx squared plus cx minus 15 is equal to a 0. So the value of a is equal to a 10, b is equal to a 20, c is equal to negative 48. So this is what we are supposed to find here. With that, we are done with this question that we have. Let's move on to the next one that we have. The last question that I wanted to discuss in this video is about differentiation. Now, in differentiation, now there are some terms that we need to know when we try to work out a question. So that is in the second part, we will come to that. So here the first part is when the equation of the graph is given to us, when we are asked to differentiate, the power of the variable should be multiplied with the coefficient. So the coefficient of x cubed is a 1. So 3 times 1 is a 3. Then write the x, reduce the power by a 1. So 3 minus 1 becomes a 2. So here again, I repeat for the next one, the power of x is 2, multiply with the coefficient, which is negative 4. 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. And reduce the power of x by 1, that becomes x to the power 1. So here the coefficient of x is 1, multiply it, power of x is 1, multiply it with the coefficient, which is negative 3, that becomes negative 3. And then reduce the power of x by 1, so this becomes x to the power 0. But x to the power 0 is equal to a 1, so I can completely get rid of that. So this is going to be the differentiation. When we differentiate, or the derivative function is going to be this 3x squared minus 8x minus 3. This differentiation is actually, this derivative function is actually a formula that is used to calculate the gradient, especially in cubic graphs. So this is a formula. This is in this differentiation, or the derivative function actually means that this is a gradient formula. So to calculate this gradient, we need to use this formula, because from point to point, the gradient will keep changing. So to use that, we need to use this formula for this particular graph. The next one is the equation of the graph is given to us as y is equal to the same x cubed minus 4x squared minus 3x. Work out the coordinates of 2 stationary points. Show all your workings. This term stationary point or turning point, maximum point, minimum point, they all mean that at those points the gradient is equal to a 0. So when we consider a cubic graph like this, as you can see here, I have drawn a cubic graph. The moment you see the term stationary point, turning points, maximum, minimum point, we need to understand that the gradient will be equal to a 0. So that is, at this point, even if we draw a tangent, we know that we will find that the gradient will be equal to a 0. So that is why these points actually mean that the gradient is equal to a 0. Now that we know that the gradient is 0 for the 2 stationary points, it means that now we must use the differentiation, the derivative function that we found, which is this 3x squared minus 8x minus 3. This is the formula for the gradient. The gradient is equal to a 0, so make it equal to a 0. We are going to solve this to find what x is. Now this is a quadratic function. So to solve this quadratic function, we're going to write this, we're going to put this in the quadratic formula. So to put this in the quadratic formula, I need to write this in the form ax squared plus bx plus c. It's already in that format. So I can find what a, b, and c is. The value of a is 3, b is negative 8, c is negative 3. And the quadratic formula will be given to you in the formula sheet, which is equal to negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. This formula will be given. So we need to substitute the values here and find 2 values for x because of the plus and the minus. So I'm going to do the substitution. Minus the value of b is minus 8, plus minus, and within the square root I have minus 8 with the square, minus 4 times the value of a is 3, and the value of c is a negative 3. And then I'm going to write this over 2 times the value of a. The value of a is 3. So I'm going to put this in the calculator and see what are the 2x values that I get. So then let's see what we end up getting as the values for x. So we have minus 8. Even I can write it this way within the brackets, plus the square root, brackets, minus 8, close bracket, square, minus 4 times, 3 times, negative 3. Denominator is 2 times 3, that is equal to a 3. Then I'm gonna change this change this positive into a negative. So when I do that, I get the value as negative 1 over 3. So now we know that the two values are 3 and negative 1 over 3. But these two are the values of x. So that is 3 and negative 1 over 3. I need to write the coordinates, means we need to find the values of y as well. Now, in this derivative function that we have here, the derivative formula that we have, which is this 3x squared minus 8x minus 3, we do not have any y in it to find the y value. The y is in the equation of the curve. So we need to substitute the values of x that we found into the equation of the curve to find the value of y, which means we have y is equal to x cubed minus 4x squared minus 3x. So I'm going to substitute the value of x into this. That is 3 cubed minus 4 times 3 squared minus 3 times the value of 3. That is the value of x here. I'm going to substitute this one again and see. So that is minus 1 over 3 cubed minus 4 times minus 1 over 3 squared minus 3 times minus 1 over 3. This way, I'm going to find their y values. Let's put this in the calculator and see what we get as the y values. We get 3 cubed minus 4 times 3 to the power 2 minus 3 times the value of x again, which is 3. And this gives us minus 18 as the y value. And next, I'm going to change this and put negative 1 over 3. I'm going to change this as well and put negative 1 over 3. And then I'm going to, the brackets here, it's going to be minus 1 over 3. So I get 14 over 27. So that is for the two x values that we have substituted. We now know their y values. So I can write the coordinate points now. So this is 18. So I got minus 18. And I got 14 over 27. So then let's put the two values here. So that is 14 over 27. So this is what we get. Now that we have found the coordinate points, the next point is to state state whether the stationary points are maximum or minimum, and we need to show our working. So we can draw a small sketch for this. So the way how we would do it is, we have 3 and negative 8. So this is 3, negative 8 will be somewhere over here. Next we have negative 1 over 3 and 14 over 27. So that's going to be somewhere like 0.5. It's going to be somewhere over here. Then what we got to do is we're going to draw the cubic graph. So it's going to be like this. This is how the graph will be, which means this point is the maximum value and this is the minimum value. So we can just sketch something like this, which means this point that we have here is negative 1 over 3 and 14 over 27. This is the maximum point, and the minimum point is going to be 3 and negative 18, this coordinate point that we have here. So this is how we need to do. And we will be, most probably, we will be asked a question like this. And also like the differentiation question will be where you will be asked to find the derivative function. And then we will also be asked to, substitute and find the values of the coordinate points, or sometimes the coordinate points, the x value or the y value will be given, and we will be asked to find what's going to be the x value. So it's just that the same derivative function formula or the equation of the graph formula will be used to work out most of the questions related to this. So with that, we will be done with all the questions that I had listed for this video. And I will be uploading some other questions, predicted questions in the next video as well, where we will be discussing about algebraic fractions, or a little more on algebraic equations. Then we will also discuss about volume surface area questions, then a little bit of probability as well, then circle theorems, and area of circles and sectors. So those are the questions that I'm hoping to explain in the next one, even including percentage questions. So I have I just mentioned what topics I will be explaining in the next video. So you can go through those topics as well and then watch the video. So that way it will be even more clear. So then, yeah, I'll see you in the next video.